The rain was pouring when they changed the locks. I stood there, holding my 6-year-old daughter Sarah's hand, watching my mother-in-law Victoria supervise the locksmith with a satisfied smirk on her face. "Please," I said, my voice barely audible over the storm. "Just let us get some clothes, her toys. You should have thought about that before you married my son for his money." Victoria spat, her perfectly manicured nails clutching her designer handbag. "Did you really think we'd let you get away with it? That we'd let you destroy the Anderson family name?" "My name is Emily Anderson. Though according to my in-laws, I don't deserve that name. 2 weeks ago, I was happily married to James Anderson, living in our beautiful home, planning our future. Now I was standing in the rain, labeled a gold digger, watching my daughter shiver as her grandmother treated us like criminals." "Mommy," Sarah whispered, tugging at my sleeve. "Why is Grandma being mean? Where's Daddy?" The question hit me like a physical blow. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that her father is gone forever? That her grandparents, in their grief and hatred, had convinced a judge that our marriage was a fraud? That everything we owned was being taken away? "We're going on an adventure, sweetheart," I manage, forcing a smile. "Remember how Daddy always said adventures make us stronger?" Victoria's laugh was sharp, cutting. "Still using my son to manipulate people, I see. Come on, Thomas." She beckoned to the locksmith. "I want these locks changed within the hour." I watched them disappear inside what had been my home for the last 7 years. The home where James and I had raised our daughter, where we built our life together. The home that, according to the court, I had no right to. The truth was so different from what they believed. I met James at a small coffee shop where I worked while putting myself through nursing school. He was different from the other wealthy customers. Kind, genuine, interested in more than just his own reflection. When he asked me out, I almost said no. I knew what people would think, the rich businessman and the barista. But James didn't care about any of that. We fell in love over late-night conversations about books, dreams, and the future we wanted to build together. He supported my nursing career, celebrated every small victory with me. When he proposed, it wasn't with an extravagant ring or a public spectacle. It was on a quiet morning in our favorite coffee shop, with a simple band that had belonged to his grandmother. His parents never approved, of course. They'd had someone else picked out for him, a girl from their social circle, someone they deemed suitable. But James stood his ground. We got married in a small ceremony with just a few friends present. His parents refused to attend. For 7 years, we were happy. James's technology company flourished, and I established myself as a pediatric nurse. We had Sarah, our miracle baby, and life was perfect. Until the accident. One rainy night, similar to this one, James was driving home from a late meeting. The other driver was drunk, ran a red light. Just like that, my world shattered. I was still in shock when Victoria and Richard Anderson launched their attack. They filed papers claiming our marriage was invalid, that I had manipulated James for his money. They produced witnesses who claimed I had bragged about marrying him for his wealth. They even suggested Sarah might not be his. In my grief, I wasn't prepared for their ruthlessness. They had the best lawyers, endless resources, and years of social connections to draw upon. I had a handful of friends, my nursing salary, and a broken heart. The judge, a friend of the Anderson family, ruled in their favor. Just like that, everything James and I had built together was gone. The house, the cars, our joint accounts, all frozen or transferred to his parents' control. Even James's life insurance policy, which he explicitly made out to me, was tied up in legal challenges. Now, 2 weeks after burying my husband, I was effectively homeless. "Come on, baby," I said to Sarah, trying to keep my voice steady. "Let's go see Aunt Rachel." Rachel wasn't really my sister, but she might as well have been. We'd grown up in the same foster home, stuck together through everything life threw at us. She lived in a small apartment across town, and I knew she'd take us in without hesitation. As we walked to the bus stop, Sarah clutching her worn teddy bear, the only possession we'd managed to grab before being locked out. I thought about James. What would he think if he could see this? His parents using their wealth and influence to destroy the family he'd loved so much. The bus ride was long, giving me too much time to think. I remembered the last conversation James and I had, the morning before the accident. He'd been excited about something, wanted to tell me later that night. "I've taken care of everything," he'd said, kissing me goodbye. "No matter what happens, you and Sarah will be protected." I promise. But what had he meant? What protection could he have put in place that his parents couldn't overturn with their army of lawyers? Rachel was waiting for us when we arrived, her face a mixture of fury and concern. She helped us inside, got Sarah settled with hot chocolate and cartoons, then pulled me into her tiny kitchen. "I'm going to kill them," she said flatly. "I swear to God, I'm going to make them pay for this." I shook my head, exhausted. "They're too powerful, Rach. They've won." "No," she said firmly, grabbing my shoulders. "That's not the Emily I know. The Emily I grew up with never let anyone beat her. Not foster parents, not bullies, not life itself. You're stronger than this." "I have to think about Sarah now," I said, glancing at my daughter curled up on Rachel's couch. "I can't fight them and take care of her at the same time." Rachel's expression softened. "Then let me help. I've been saving for a down payment on a house. But this is more important. We'll get you a lawyer, a good one, not some overworked public defender. James wouldn't want them to get away with this." I started to protest, but she cut me off. "James was my friend too, Em. He helped me get my job at the hospital, believed in me when nobody else did. Let me do this for him, for you and Sarah." That night, after Sarah was asleep in Rachel's spare room, I sat at the kitchen table going through the few papers I'd managed to keep in my purse. Bank statements, Sarah's school records, and a small photo album I always carried. As I flipped through the photos, something fell out, a business card I'd never seen before. It was for a law firm I didn't recognize, with a handwritten note on the back in James's writing. "Just in case. The code is 729 ESA. I showed it to Rachel, who was already on her laptop researching lawyers. 729 ESA. She mused. Could it be a safe combination? But what's safe? I asked. The only one I knew about was in his office, and his parents have control of that now. Rachel was quiet for a moment, thinking, remember that storage unit he rented last year? The one he said was for old company files? Did he ever give you the key? My heart started racing. The storage unit, I'd completely forgotten about it. James had insisted I keep a key, just in case. But I'd never had reason to use it. It's in my keychain, I said, digging through my purse. But Rachel, it's almost midnight. We can't. Yes, we can, she interrupted, already grabbing her coat. The facility is 24/7, and I don't know about you, but I'm not sleeping tonight anyway. The storage facility was on the outskirts of town, a modern building with keypad entry and security cameras. Our footsteps echoed in the empty corridors as we made our way to Unit 729. The number couldn't be a coincidence. The key worked. Inside there were indeed boxes of files, but also something else. A small safe, tucked in the corner. My hands shook as I input the code, 729 ESA. The safe opened with a soft click. Inside was a single envelope, thick with documents, with my name written on it in James's familiar handwriting. As I opened it, a letter fell out, dated just 3 weeks before his death. "My dearest Emily," it began, "if you're reading this, something has happened to me, and my parents have done exactly what I feared they would. But don't worry, my love. I knew they'd try to take everything from you and Sarah. That's why I made sure they couldn't." My hands trembled as I read James's letter, Rachel peering over my shoulder in the dim light of the storage unit. "My parents never understood what real wealth is," James's letter continued. "They think it's about money, status, controlling others. But true wealth is the love we share, the family we've built, a life we've created together. That's what I'm protecting here." I pulled out the stack of documents behind the letter. What I saw made my breath catch. 3 years ago, James had written, "I created a separate company under a different name. I transferred most of my personal assets there, including patents for my most valuable innovations. My parents think they control everything through Anderson Tech, but the real value was never there. It was in this." The documents showed a company called ESI Innovations, Sarah's initials. James had made me the sole owner, with Sarah as beneficiary. The company held patents worth millions, along with properties and investments I'd known nothing about. "Oh my God," Rachel whispered. "Emily, do you know what this means?" I did. James hadn't just left us provided for. He'd outsmarted his parents completely. They'd been so focused on taking Anderson Tech, they never realized it was just a shell. But there was more. The next document was a video will properly witnessed and filed with multiple law firms. James had recorded it secretly, knowing his parents might try to challenge any traditional will. My parents will claim Emily married me for money, his written instructions said. This video proves otherwise. Show it only when the time is right, when they've revealed who they truly are to the world. Rachel grabbed my arm. We need to get these somewhere safe. Now. She was right. If Victoria and Richard found out about this storage unit, these documents would disappear. We carefully packed everything into Rachel's car and drove straight to her bank, where we rented a safe deposit box. The next morning, I called the law firm from James's business card. The receptionist connected me immediately when I mentioned my name. Mrs. Anderson, the lawyer, Mr. Sullivan, said warmly, "We've been waiting for your call." James was very specific about what should happen next. Over the next few weeks, Mr. Sullivan executed James's plan perfectly. First, he let Victoria and Richard continue their campaign against me, gathering evidence of every underhanded tactic they used, every false witness, every manipulated document, every abuse of influence. Meanwhile, he quietly filed the paperwork to transfer ESA Innovations patents to new applications, protecting them from any future claims. The company's value soared as tech giants began bidding for licensing rights. Victoria and Richard remained oblivious, too busy gloating over their victory and systematically dismantling everything James had built at Anderson Tech. They fired loyal employees, canceled innovative projects, focused solely on quick profits. Then, exactly 1 month after they changed the locks on me, Mr. Sullivan struck. I was sitting in his office when Victoria and Richard were served with papers exposing their fraud. The video was released simultaneously to the board of directors and major shareholders of Anderson Tech. In the video, James detailed everything: his parents' manipulation, their attempts to control him, their threats when he married me. He explained how he protected his real legacy, ensuring it would go to the family he chose, not the one he was born into. My wife Emily, he said in the video, looking directly at the camera, is the strongest, most genuine person I've ever known. She loved me when I was just a guy in a coffee shop, supported every dream I had, gave me the greatest gift in our daughter Sarah. Anyone who claimed she married me for money never knew either of us at all. The fallout was spectacular. The Anderson Tech Board, faced with evidence of Victoria and Richard's deceptions, voted to remove them from any involvement with the company. Shareholders, angry about being misled about the company's true value, launched their own lawsuits. But the real shock came when they learned about ESA Innovations. The company I now controlled was worth 10 times what Anderson Tech was. The patents James had quietly transferred were the foundation of an entirely new technology platform. Victoria and Richard's lawyer called me, begging for a meeting. I agreed to see them in Mr. Sullivan's office. They looked smaller somehow, less intimidating. Victoria's perfect makeup couldn't hide her exhaustion. Richard's hands shook as he held his expensive briefcase. "We can negotiate," Richard started, but I cut him off. "No," I said quietly. "We can't. You didn't just try to take my home, my security. You tried to take my daughter's memories of her father. You tried to erase our love story and replace it with your lies." We were grieving. Victoria protested weakly. "We lost our son. And I lost my husband." I felt years of pain and anger finally break free. "Sarah lost her father. But instead of coming together as a family, you chose hate. You chose cruelty. And now you've lost everything just like you tried to take everything from us." I stood up, smoothing down the dress I'd bought with my first ESA Innovations dividend check. "The difference is, I won't enjoy watching you suffer. James wouldn't have wanted that. So here's what's going to happen." I laid out my terms. They would publicly apologize and retract every lie they told about me. They would step down from Anderson Tech completely. And most importantly, they would undergo counseling if they ever wanted to have a relationship with their granddaughter. "Why?" Richard asked, his voice breaking. "Why show us any mercy after what we did?" "Because that's what James would have done," I said simply. "And because Sarah deserves to know that people can change, that hate doesn't have to win." They accepted my terms. What choice did they have? Their reputation was in tatters, their power gone. All they had left was the chance at redemption I was offering. A year has passed since then. I moved Sarah back into our home, but made some changes. James' office is now a combination art studio and playroom, filled with Sarah's drawings and laughter. The formal dining room where Victoria used to hold her society luncheons is a community space where I host support groups for grieving families. ASI Innovations continues to grow, but with a different focus than Anderson Tech had. We fund research into safer driver technology inspired by the accident that took James. We offer scholarships to struggling students, remembering how James believed in people others overlooked. Victoria and Richard are trying in their way. They've completed 6 months of counseling and have begun supervised visits with Sarah. It's not perfect, but it's progress. Sometimes, when Victoria watches Sarah play, I see genuine regret in her eyes. Last week, Sarah found an old photo album in the attic. There was a picture of James and me at that coffee shop where we met, both of us young and laughing, unaware of all that lay ahead. "Daddy looks so happy," Sarah said, tracing his face with her small finger. "He was happy," I told her. "He knew what real wealth was." "What's that, Mommy?" I hugged her close, breathing in the scent of her hair. "Love, baby. Love and family and doing what's right. Those are things nobody can take away from you." In my office at ESA Innovations, I keep 2 things on my desk. One is that original business card with the safe code, now framed. The other is a new coffee shop punch card. I bought the chain where James and I met, keeping it exactly as it was, a place where love stories can still begin over a simple cup of coffee. Sometimes I think about what James wrote in his letter. True wealth is the love we share. He was right. Money comes and goes. Power shifts, but love, real, honest, unshakable love, that's the legacy worth protecting. And as for Victoria and Richard, they're learning that lesson slowly, one supervised visit at a time. It's not the revenge they might have expected, this chance at redemption they don't deserve. But it's what James would have wanted, and in the end, that's all that matters. Because the greatest victory isn't in destroying those who hurt you, it's in building something beautiful from the ashes they left behind.